So we are rolling. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the Derby City Fandom podcast. My name is Kenny. I will be your host once again tonight, joined by Colin and Jake. Welcome back, guys.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, Kenny. Hey, everybody.
All right. So tonight, I believe we are going to do kind of like a mid-season sort of review for The Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, the Amazon TV show that has just come out.
Yep.
And all kinds of fun things in regards to that. Colin, do you have any notes that we
got
are
plenty of
expecting
things
to
to
cover?
talk about, buddy. I'll tell you right now. But before we get into that, I do want you all to know one thing. You know whose birthday is today? September 20th?
I do not.
I do not.
It's George R. R. Martin's birthday.
Is it really?
Yes,
Huh.
it is.
Well, happy birthday to Mr. Martin.
But anyway, yeah, let's freaking go ahead and get started on the Rings of Power. Obviously, just to bring up as factual information, we got an 84% so far on Rotten Tomatoes, pardon me, and a 6.9 out of 10 on IMDb. Not great, not awful, but I think it's gonna get better.
What's your personal opinion on the show, Colin? Full disclosure, I haven't watched any of it, but I do like Lord of the Rings.
So far, I'm intrigued. There's definitely a lot of not throwbacks, but a lot of detail that pertains to the actual Lord of the Rings series, and we're never really caught on to that because it wasn't really ever introduced into the books. Like vague kind of accounts, but other than that, yeah, I'm liking it so far. I'm excited to what the future brings.
So is this a prequel to the Lord of the Rings series or the Hobbit?
Yeah,
or where's
so-
it fall in the timeline?
I have the answer to that. So the Rings of Power kind of covers what happens in the Silmarillion. I'm going to butcher that every time I have to say it. Silmarillion, thank you. But that is the book that happens before The Hobbit.
Okay.
Or I guess it's placed before The Hobbit, which covers 5 different parts through, and I guess the timeline so far. Like, it has a creation myth in regards to how Middle-earth and all the other lands were created, the first and second ages, as well as dabbling into the beginning of the third age, which is where The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings takes place in. So that's kind of what you're looking at there. So, Jake, I know that you said you haven't watched the show yet, but when we say the Rings of Power, I have to imagine you know about the One Ring, correct?
Correct.
But
yeah.
do you know about the other 19?
No, I never knew there was 19 more rings.
Yes.
Yeah, there was one ring to rule them all, based on of the Lord of the Rings, the original series, or the books per se. But
Yeah. So that is something that they do cover in the, what was it called again, Colin?
Silmarillion.
Thank you. And that there is kind of like a little rhyme associated with it. So this is going to be probably spoilers for the series at some point in time. But each of the different races get...
spoiler alert. by
Yes,
the way.
spoiler alert. Each of the different races will eventually get different rings. Now, 3 rings are given to the elves, 7 to the dwarves, and 9 to the mortal men. Doomed to die.
7 to the doors. I'm
Yes.
sure this isn't a.
So, for those that kind of know how that storyline goes out, the 9 people that received the rings end up becoming the Nazguls, the little ring race, as they're called.
And the Rings of Power. So the main plot of this story is to kind of discuss those rings.
Yes, the creation of
The
them.
creation of the rings in general. So they have not, so far in the series, they have not been created at all. So we're getting to that point where they'll eventually be forged, and those rings will be given out to those individuals. And then Sauron coming in and making one ring of his own and saying, "Ha, bitches, I control all of you."
Yeah, which is very, very bad for the people of Middle-earth and I guess the world as a whole. So, from there, Colin, I guess we can go into the show itself here, do you have any talking points, or do you want me to?
Yeah, so I want to get back on the rings. So, speaking about the elves, they get 3 rings. That's gonna have to get edited out, I'm sure.
Oh, fuck it.
So the 3 rings that the elves get are fire, water, and air, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, so basically they can wear those rings, whoever. So like Gladriel had a ring, and I forget who the other 2 had.
The king did.
Yeah.
The king actually has 2, and then eventually, Gandalf eventually gets it, but that's weird.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different.
That's its own thing.
That's its own thing. But yeah, so they wield the ring essentially, and they can like harness whatever. So they can like harness fire and do whatever they want. Yeah. Not do whatever they want, but they can do whatever they want with it. Yeah. Same with water and air, or wind, I guess.
Right. So to kind of elaborate off of that a little bit, maybe to make it a bit easier to understand, is that the different sets of rings have different, I guess, properties to them, as Colin was saying, like fire, earth, water, whatever. But like, think of it as all the rings have a general ability to extend the lifespan of whoever is wearing it. That's why Bilbo is able to live to like 100 and whatever, 111 or something.
He celebrated his 111th birthday, and that's when he left the Shire and he went to Rivendell.
Right.
Then eventually he went to Valinor, I guess.
Yeah, back to the lands in the west. But outside of just the extended lifespan bit, you have the elven rings that are like kind of elemental based, but they also have the ability to like heal and to preserve like the general balance of things around them. But they also have like side effects where like the dwarven rings, for example, it does extend their lifespan and their ability to like gain like wealth, like they just become kind of like naturally like lucky and good at like earning money, but it makes them very like angry, and it makes them incredibly greedy, which is why they eventually dig too deep and find Balrog, and everybody kind of knows where that goes. And then you have the rings that the men get, where they get the extended lifespan, but they also are able to kind of partially phase into like the spirit world, with air quotes, where they become invisible and they are able to see other things that are invisible under normal circumstances. However, that side effect is that they kind of become enslaved, more so than any of the other ones,
like
to
Smeagol.
Sauron himself.
Yeah, to a degree, like Smeagol. Yeah. Kind of possesses you a little bit, and then so when Frodo would put on the ring and he would turn invisible, right? The ring wraiths could see him with the ring on. That's why he was stabbed on Weathertop by the Nazgul dagger, I guess.
Yes.
And so he took the ring off, screamed like a little bitch in the movie, and that was about it.
It feels like that one ring from Lord of the Rings series kind of makes them like irate and angry, and
Yeah, so that's one of the side effects as well, is that you are gradually becoming a wraith. Whether you become a wraith or not, it depends on how long you wear it. You do see instances in the Lord of the Rings where like Bilbo gets a really creepy face for like all of like 5 frames.
Yeah, dude.
And then it disappears because he goes back to a normal person. That's the side effect of the ring that he wore all those years.
So the ring to rule them all in the one Lord of the Rings, is that one of the 19?
That is number 20.
That's number 20.
Okay.
So that ring is also special because it is inscribed with the Black Speech, which is kind of unique to Sauron and his mentor, Morgoth, which is that entire bit is somewhat explained in the first episode.
A little bit.
We can kind of use that segue back into the first episode. So, Colin, how do you feel about the elves getting center stage so far?
They, I have mixed feelings about the elves entirely. So I get this vibe, I guess, with the elves currently in the series. They got this like woodland realm, and I don't know the best way to describe it is they're more the woodland realm is more peaceful, but they're also more, I don't know. But basically, what I'm getting at is when I see Galadriel, I know that she can do magical things, but so far in the series, we're just seeing her physically fight people and do all kinds of crazy stuff with a sword, which is typical for elves. When you look at like Legolas in Lord of the Rings, like he was doing all this like crazy stuff, riding a shield down some steps or riding an Oliphant, that kind of stuff. Like I get that, but Galadriel is literally like the oldest female, or no, the oldest person in Middle Earth besides like Sauron.
Yeah, and Elrond.
Elrond?
Yeah. The friend
No,
Hugo.
I know who Elrond is. I'm just thinking like she was like
in terms of like age, like he's been around for the most amount of time.
Yeah,
it's definitely between
like before time, and then Sauron was like basically when Middle Earth was created. So like them two are like top tier to me, and then everybody else. So like Elrond and Gil-galad or whatever the fuck that king's name is.
Yeah, who I guess is technically older, but I think his particular fall is going to be explained more in the show.
Definitely.
So, as a side note, I don't know if you guys are aware, but supposedly this show is slated to have five seasons. And is already set to be the most expensive production value.
Wasn't it like
$1 billion?
$1 billion I thought it was $1 billion an episode.
Billion? No, it's $1 billion for just this
one
season so far.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos, man.
From what I can tell, it's entirely done on the landscape flyovers.
Is it worth it? Like, is it good so far?
Yeah, like
the
visuals and everything, like all of that. Like you can tell money was put into that.
Money was put into it.
Phenomenal. And the acting, I mean, there's some acting that's kind of cheesy, but like overall, the acting I think is top tier. Visuals for sure. Once again, I want to emphasize that.
So they did go in the visuals, and it seems like they did a good job of portraying the background and the overall environment and culture. I think we kind of talked about that with House of the Dragons. Like, I like that so much better than Game of Thrones because you can tell they had a bigger budget, and they just made everything and anything about it just seem more realistic. And it sounds like they're on that path with Rings of Power.
Jeff Bezos, if I recall correctly, he was just like, all right, this is how I want to do it. I want this to be like a show that competes with something like Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So this is the Game of Thrones for Amazon, whereas HBO is obviously Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, whatnot.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like so far is they've managed to maintain all of Tolkien's stupid tropes, where Tolkien is basically the creator of fantasy racism. The humans hate the elves with a passion. The dwarves hate the elves with a passion. The elves are just like, well, why does everybody hate us? How are we so wrong? It's like, it is just so obnoxiously just like, oh, come on, guys.
I'd be the first one to admit when I watched the Lord of the Rings series. Whatever, I'm gonna fucking say it, but the hills remind me of, like, the Germans in real life. Like, everyone's like, I don't know, they're all kind of like arrogant bastards. Like, I don't hate them, but I'm like,
I mean, think about when he wrote all of the Silmarillion, the Hobbit, all that's all during World War
That's very true. I never thought about that.
I forget what his actual time frame for writing.
I think he served in World War One.
World War One.
He wrote a lot of this. World War
So
II.
a lot of it definitely has that Nazi German aspect, for sure, 100%.
That's just when I think of the elves, they immediately think of like
arrogant.
That's the point.
It is very much there. So far there's only 4 episodes out right now. They're releasing it weekly, which I like. as opposed to just them dumping it in one go and then
Other orcs?
Yeah.
yes. However, these are like beta orcs, I guess. Like you have the alpha orcs that you see kind of in the first episode when they explain how the elves fought Sauron and the crew. But they keep some of the elements that are described in like The Hobbit, where some of these creatures can't be out in sunlight because it physically hurts them or it turns them to stone.
It burns them. Like, literally, you see them wearing, like, hoods and freaking, like, helmets and shit. But, like, since we're talking about the orcs, this is what I want to say. When you look at Lord of the Rings, the orcs and the Uruk-hai, all that, dude, they seem dumb.
They're dumb. They are so much stupider.
Right. But
They are
when,
so
when we're
much dumb.
watching, when you're watching Rings of Power, I get this sense of intelligence, more intelligence than say Lord of the Rings. Actually,
Right. Well,
I don't know why that is, or maybe that's just my personal opinion, and I'm wrong. That's fine, whatever. But I'm definitely getting more intelligence from this series than the movies.
sure. Now, in the Two Towers Lord of the Rings film,
Yeah.
aren't the Uruk-hai and the orcs like being like breeded together to make like a super orc, basically? In that scene where they're like
No,
creating them from the like
No,
mud?
the Uruk-hai, they're if I can remember this correctly, the Uruk-hai were basically elves that were just tortured.
Right, like that's like the traditional, so to
But
speak.
the orcs are, I don't remember how orcs are made or whatever. But
From the ground.
Yeah, they're like corruptions of the earth, basically.
My favorite characters from the Lord of the Rings series are the giant talking moving trees.
Oh, the
Ents.
Ents.
Yeah.
You
whatever
see
they're called.
you see the silhouette of one, so they exist.
Do you think they're gonna show up?
I
in the
doubt it
Rings of
because
Power?
it is so much related to the rings, and the Ents really have no
Nothing to do with it.
influence with it because the Ents are really only involved with Saruman and his particular tower.
yeah, but they're not even, the wizards aren't even around yet,
No,
or at least.
but
not
yeah, you
yet.
get some like hints at them. Like this show so far has so many hints to different aspects of Lord of the Rings that has happened in the films.
Yeah.
You see the white tree of Gondor, which only is supposed to like flower and leaf when the king is alive.
So, what characters? Help me out here. So, what characters in this series, are, if any, are in the Lord of the Rings?
None.
Funny you should ask
Well,
that.
Galadriel, just one.
No, two of them.
Okay, sure. Elrond. Sure.
Elrond, yes.
The
Hugo,
younger
Mr. Smith himself.
Hugo Weaving.
Mr.
Weaving the belief? Yeah.
Yeah. So that guy, whatever his name is, crap, what is his name?
Yeah, it's Elrond and Galadriel that carry over into
Robert Aramayo or whatever. So he's the younger version of Elrond, and then the Galadriel is played by the younger girl, Morfydd Clark.
Yeah, Morphic Clark. That's a butcher of the name, I'm sure. Sorry.
Probably. But anyway, no, those are the only two that are in the original series.
Yes.
But I think they're both doing a great job. I enjoy Elrond and his demeanor, everything he's pulling off. I definitely see him pulling off Elrond 100%.
You get the sense that he's very much the statesman, which is exactly what he is by the time that the fellowship happens. He's just a political figure who happens to be involved in every aspect of, mankind's history. But so he's one of the kind of nods to like the future. One thing that I like is that in the first couple episodes, you see the broken hilt of Sauron's sword
Mm-hmm.
arbitrarily underneath the floorboards with no explanation of how it really got there, just that it's there.
That really baffles me
That
so
baffles me a
hard.
tiny bit, but it's like, they found the one ring to rule them all in a creek bed. Eh. But it was kind of like a nice little nod that is like, oh hey, I know that sword hilt. It's already broken for some reason, but
Yeah, I'm sure. Dude, like I'm saying, there's gonna be stuff that we're not gonna get explanations for until like the third, fourth season, or maybe in fifth season that are happening right now, for sure.
yes. So another kind of thing they do nod to in later episodes is you see the dwarves. The dwarves come back. You get to see the old misty mountains and the
Hold
fires
on.
below.
Speaking of the dwarves, we are finally introduced to female dwarves.
Yes, and
Yeah, there you go.
and to all those out there, they do not have beards.
They do not have beards like Gimli said.
I still have faith.
Dude,
Yes, but you are introduced to a wonderful moment between Elrond and Durin.
Durin.
The second. Where he is pissed at Elrond because he hasn't visited in 20 years. Now to Elrond, the elf, who can't die unless he's stabbed because and token elves age infinitely.
Yeah.
So long as they have like food and water, they're good. So he's kind of perplexed on how the dwarf is so upset that 20 years has passed. And he's just like, well, that's half of my life.
Yeah. Literally, like 20 years is a literal blink to an elf. Like blink of the eye. Like blink of the eye, 20 years is gone. But he's lived a pretty decent life, and he's married. He has 2 kids.
2 kids?
Yeah, so like he shows up. Well, actually, we need to back up a little bit before we even get there. We need to talk about Elrond, how he goes and meets Celebrimbor.
Celebrimbor. Yes.
Yeah, he's a freaking cool cat.
Yeah.
But my problem with that is I think he is more of a major character. He's more of a major character than what's being led on.
Well, for some of us that know his involvement, like, he's about as important as Sauron himself.
I mean, they have interactions with one another. Spoiler.
But, his particular involvement in the series is explained in the storylines and the different video games. The one bit of Elvish that I do know is that Celebrimbor means silver hand.
Mm-hmm.
And he is an artisan. He's a crafts guy. He wants to build art.
He's a blacksmith, right?
Yes, for the lack of a better word, he's a jeweler, he's a blacksmith, he's an artificer.
Like, he's pretty much number one in the elven...
Yeah. He has his own kingdom, right?
Yeah.
Like, Aragon, or how are you pronounced?
Aragon.
Aragon? Yeah, the place right next to Khazad-dûm, the Dwarven Kingdom, which is why that saying makes sense. But yeah, no, he's no small fry.
Nope.
Granted, for anybody that doesn't know what's going on in this series, that's going to be explained eventually.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Another thing I would like to talk about is Galadriel herself, she's basically kicking ass, like I said, but...
Some of her decisions do baffle me. Well, like, I can understand the dedication to her cause, to want to make sure that Sauron's dead, but she just jumped off a boat in the middle of the Sundering Seas.
Let's give our listeners some context here. So basically,
Okay,
Galadriel has been searching for Sauron and all the relics that remain of him when he was destroyed, air quotes. And so basically, he's destroyed. There's relics left behind, and she's trying to find him so he makes sure that he doesn't come back. And there's all kinds of traces. And basically, she goes back to her king, Gal. What is it? Gadad? Gilgalad.
Gil Galadad or something.
Yeah, whatever the fuck his name is, I can never remember it. But anyway, he basically, and even Elrond was like, dude, you just need to go to the white shores of Valinor and live a happy life. Which, if you don't know what Valinor is, that's basically heaven. I mean, living.
Kind of, sort of. It's like the elvish, like, paradise land where it's always springtime and there's always like food and stuff.
Yeah.
It's where everybody wants to go, but that's the impetus for the entire show is that Sauron and Mordred?
Who? Morgoth?
Morgoth, thank you. Morgoth decides like, oh hey, let's ruin that place.
Yeah.
And then they have to go to Middle Earth to stop him.
Yeah, so she is basically sent off with a bunch of other elves to Valinor, and right before she gets there, she jumps off the boat and gets on this floating raft with this dude Halbrand, and then this ship comes by, picks him up, and takes him to Numenor.
Numenor.
Which is awesome.
Awesome. So, Jake, I know you haven't seen Numenor, but think of Athens, right?
Okay.
Times it by like 100 in terms of like architecture and like the amount of like stonework and marble and stuff chiseled. And that's basically Numenor.
Do they show it in the show?
They do.
Yeah.
So the fun bit about Numenor is that one of the side plots to this particular story is that half of the humans sided with Sauron. The other half of the humans sided with the elves. Numenor is the side that sided with the elves.
Correct. And that was basically an island,
An island, whatever.
whatever. It was
Same
gifted
difference.
by the elves to them. Now, the people that live in Numenor at the time of the series, some of them take it like, oh, we earned this by the sweat, blood, and everything off of our shoulders. Nothing was given to us.
Yeah.
We earned this shit. But then you look at other individuals, you ask them, like, no, this is a gift.
So who lives there? Are they human?
Yeah,
Oh,
they're
human
all
folk,
they're
dude.
all men, women, children, whatever.
Yes, they are the seafarers. Now, under normal circumstances, you would probably just write this off. But this is where Isildur is, the future king of man.
Isildur, yes, and his
Yes.
father Elendil.
Yes, who I believe ends up becoming either the king of Gondor or...
Gondor.
Okay. And one of the things that you were also introduced to is that he now has a sister.
Yeah,
The sister doesn't exist in the books.
that was no. I don't understand where she came about. I don't know.
I
anything
think
about,
he's
I thought
gonna-
They were all men in that family.
Yes, originally. Now, my best prediction to what her role is going to be is that she is going to somehow make Isildur's choice to go evil to be more tragic as opposed to being more like selfish. It's like, I want the power. I know this ring is going to corrupt me, but I want the power. And
No.
maybe make it more tragic. That is my prediction. What are your thoughts?
No,
No?
no. I definitely think that that family is overall good. I don't really see anything negative coming out of that family. I mean, Elendil and then Isildur, he becomes king, and they basically kick ass, and they take on, like, the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. That's when you see Isildur, and he cuts off Sauron's hand and the ring and blah blah blah, and that freaking huge that beginning of this freaking movie is freaking phenomenal. So
Yeah.
I don't see anything. No, he's gonna be a top tier good guy. But right now in the series, he's basically trying to get out of Numenor because he turned down that uh, working on the ship shit. I forget what that was all about. But anyway,
Yeah, there's like a rite of passage or sorts that the Numenorians or whatever.
yeah,
I don't know how you want to pronounce the island folk. Uh, they have like
Ians, Numenorians,
probably.
whatever.
Anyways, they have to pass a test to basically join the Navy effectively. So that is kind of what his current motion through the current plot is, that his father is trying to push him to do the seafaring stuff while Isildur is being tempted by some whispers, some ominous whispers from somewhere inland.
I don't know what that's about. I kind of want to say that's like, I want to say that's like Galadriel, since she could do that kind of shit through her head. Like in Fellowship of the Ring, she was doing that shit to Boromir.
Right.
Um,
Which is weird because the whole whispering bit was always kind of a thing that the rings did, but the rings are not made yet.
yeah, so that's why I think it's more of an elf thing. It has to be. That's the only
Probably.
explanation. But yeah.
Okay, so one particular group that we haven't talked about, I guess yet, are the Harfoots, the hobbits
Yeah.
of the show so far, and their fun interactions. So it never fails. There's always one hobbit that is breaking the mold.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody wants to stick to tradition and whatnot. So basically, the Harfoots, Jake, these cats are distant relatives of like the Frodo, Sam, and all that. They're distant
Are they
relatives.
still in the Shire? Or
No.
No.
They're in the Southlands, which is entirely different. But essentially, these guys, they travel via like their wagons, basically season to season, or maybe like every other season. They basically sit in one area for like a season, harvest all the stuff that they can, but also be
They're hunter-gatherers, basically.
yeah, and then they just travel, and they're
Yeah.
peaceful and whatnot. And then one particular night, there's a
shooting star that the entire world sees.
shooting star.
Do you want to guess where it lands and who it lands in front of?
This girl Nori, who is Harfoot Hobbit,
Yes.
and she sees this guy, this tall dude who we don't know anything about.
He's
just
known
known as
only as the stranger,
the
and that is
Stranger.
what he is listed as in the character credits so far. So this is a secret
Hmm.
Yeah,
as
we-
far as IMDb
wizard,
and
you
Rotten
think?
Tomatoes is called.
Do I?
Is it a wizard? Do you think?
I'd
No.
see. I don't think it's a wizard, because there's a scene where, so basically, a falling star lands on the ground, and basically, imagine like an asteroid hitting the ground, and there's like a little crater. Well, when he's in the center of it, they come up to it. That little crater is basically engulfed in flames. Essentially, she falls down into the crater. Nori, the girl you saw, and like he kind of wakes up for a second, like grabs her arm, the flames just go out.
Right.
It's kind of trippy, right?
She makes a point to say that the flames are not hot, even though she's clearly like putting her hand on like red hot stone.
Yeah. She's not getting burned or anything.
So do you all think this shooting star is ominous, or?
Oh, for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, there's definitely more to this cat.
Yeah.
But
So
he basically looks like a homeless freaking dude.
this is the crater in particular here, right? He's very much in the center of it, and this guy is about as beat up as they get, which is funny because he has like He has giant Gandalf vibes, like, not quite like hobo wizard guy.
Younger Gandalf vibes. That's what I thought when I first watched this. Like maybe he's a wizard or something, but then
Yeah.
later on in the series, he ends up like taking some. So they use lanterns to navigate at night, and then the lanterns are fireflies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, he gets the fireflies out of the lantern because at the time she just drops it. No, doesn't matter how she drops it, but she drops it. He basically takes them and like he makes like a star, like literal star pattern into the sky, like saying this is where I'm from, kind of thing. But then
Then all
fireflies
of them die,
They
which
all-
is not a great sign, right?
Well, that's not good.
No, because
Not at all.
you don't get that with any kind of wizard. The only wizard that would have done that kind of shit would have been Saruman and freaking Two Towers, where he cut down all the trees and killed a bunch of goats and this, that, and the
Sounds
other.
like this fucking guy is an alien.
He might as well be. So he doesn't really know how to talk. Like, he has some basic speech that Nori, the Harfoot, kind of like teaches him. He has no recollection of who he is, and only a vague recollection of where he came from. And as Colin says, he does like a little. It's like, oh, I came from the stars, but he has no recollection of anything else.
Yeah, so I don't know anything about the stranger. I got like some theories, if you will, but like those are kind of a stretch. But speaking of theories, let's move on into some theories about the show.
We theory crafting now. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
All right, let's talk about. So Sauron's eventually going to come back.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. He's maybe not necessarily in this season. He might be like the
So
big
he-
teaser at the end.
He
but
has to come back, and rather he comes back as himself, like in Lord of the Rings, or he comes back as like a human or something like that, or the shape of a human, morphed into a human, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
So, do we think right now Sauron is one of the main characters in the show right now, or we?
My best bet there is that he's the stranger. Because they're about the same size.
They're the same size, but like.
But that's about it.
So here's my problem with that.
Okay.
So, if I remember this correctly, Sauron morphs into like this handsome looking dude, and he goes and has a conversation with Celebrimbor.
Yes, he becomes the Lord of the
to
Gifts.
have the forges made.
Correct.
That was all prior, like him landing on Middle Earth, if you will, all happened prior to Celebrimbor being introduced, and he's been with the Harfoots the entire time. So that's the reason why I have my doubts, because Celebrimbor, when we meet him, he's already having that made, so that conversation was already had, and you know what I'm saying?
Right. No, I get your train of thought. That could just be a writing thing, but
Could be.
that's one of those things where dark magic isn't really explained quite as well as all the other kinds of magics are, which, acceptable. It's magic, free pass, whatever. You kind of make up the rules as you go along. That being said, that's kind of like where I want to throw my bone in at. That, the tall guy that is able to, bend the trees by screaming.
Yeah.
In the one scene.
Yeah.
Tens.
Poor trees. They're gonna
Get
beat up in
so
this series.
don't worry, Jake. The trees go back to normal once he's done screaming.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's
Makes
very
sense.
much
Trees were actually harmed in the making of this series.
except for the
Damn
one.
straight.
Except for the one.
That's true.
Now that's a separate side plot for this particular show. So, Colin, how do you feel about the side plots? Do you have any fan theories about I guess Elf Crew number 2 for the show?
Elf Crew number 2, what do you mean?
The ones that get captured by the orcs.
Oh, by the orcs.
By
yeah.
Arendir. I'm gonna probably butcher that.
Aaron Deer. Let's go with that. No, he's not an important character. I think that's more of like a character to be introduced to a more important character, if you will. So this guy Adar, who is actually played by a Game of Thrones actor.
Is he really?
Yeah. Benjen Stark in Game of Thrones. Remember that guy?
Yeah,
He
there you go.
plays
Oh,
this. He
Sweet.
plays this. This guy Adar, which in Elven means father.
Yeah.
So he basically has like some scarring on his face, and so he's in charge of the orcs. And so the orcs currently are like tunneling essentially in the ground, and they have like these canopies over the ground because orcs can't be in the sunlight. So basically, this entire trench is canopied all the way.
Yeah, it's basically like a countrywide tunnel going from like city to city to abduct more workers to make longer tunnels.
Yeah, essentially.
Is the current plot so far with the tunnels.
And the orcs are currently looking for the hilt of Sauron. And this kid in this village has it. He finds it.
It's the equivalent of finding like nuclear launch codes underneath somebody's mattress.
It was found underneath some floorboards. Swear to God. And that's why I'm just like, all right. After that fact, the storyline with that kid and the hilt is kind of getting interesting. But before that, he finds underneath some floorboards some random dude's house that he snuck into. I don't remember how he got in there, but that was...
Oh, they're kids. They just broke in.
Yeah, it's absolutely dumb. But like he grabs onto the sword and he ends up being cut somehow.
The friend gets cut, but then the sword starts speaking black speech to him, and you see like the classic like black flames and like the eye of Sauron kind of for a second like shows up before he like snaps out of it to book it out of there.
Yeah, so that was that so that like fiery ashy cloud was actually forming the sword and making it longer. Do we have a picture of that?
I can
find
bring
a
it up,
picture
I'm
of that?
sure.
Anyway. So basically, like, you can see the blood going down his arm and going into the sword itself. Like, it's being drawn into it.
Ooh.
It's actually kind of cool looking the way they did it. Yeah, that's not a very good picture.
Well.
Whatever. Anyway, so that whole storyline is interesting.
But yeah, so that goes back to the thing where it was shown off in the promo material where this hilt of this particular sword is gripped by Sauron.
It's gripped by Sauron. That's
So
the same
it's
sword.
not. It's. I mean, it's a spoiler, but it's one that they released themselves, I suppose. So
Whatever. But anyway, going back to that Andior guy, that elvish dude.
Yeah.
So essentially, he meets this guy Adar, who's Benjen Stark, that actor. And he holds him captive, and there was like some fighting going on anyway. So he like captures him again because he tried to escape, and Adar tells this dude, Arondir, I want you to send a message to where the elves are. Basically, surrender or die. Because that's basically where they're heading. Is they're tunneling towards where the elves are in this tower, and they're gonna freaking...
Sure, that's gonna end well.
Well, I mean, there's 5 seasons, so probably won't end well to begin with, but it will get better.
We'll see.
We'll see
what happens. Anyway, all right. So enough of that. I mean, all right. So pretty much, yeah. That's all I got.
So that's all you got. Okay. So I guess we can go back to one of the other kind of like symbolism bits. So do you remember earlier when I was talking about the white tree and how that's affiliated with the kingdom of man?
Yes, I actually did have a question about that. So you guys keep mentioning about nods to the Lord of the Rings series or book.
Sure.
Do they do a good job with that? Sometimes I
Yes.
feel
So,
like
Yeah.
they make too many nods and it gets just, I
No,
don't know,
they're
it's
all
just
subtle.
not clever
I
and
feel
poor
like they're
writing.
subtle.
And But
They're subtle for people that are maybe not necessarily as ingrained as others are. So with the tree being there, that means that the rightful king is alive and is somewhere, right? If it's ever like flowering or like full of leaves or whatever. If the tree is leafless, then basically the king is dead
The king's dead. There's no king.
and there's
So
no
do you
king.
remember in Return of the King? Have you saw Return of the King, right?
Correct.
So you remember in Return of the King at Minas Tirith? There's that tree in the center of the place,
yes,
and it has no,
For a while, it has no leaves on it,
basically.
but as soon as
As soon as Aragorn comes back, it starts to bloom.
yeah, as soon as he has like accepted his own like destiny effectively to be the king is when the tree starts like leaving like producing leaves and flowering and all that. So one of the side things that is a nice nod is that Halbrand, the plucky human that happens to find Galadriel at sea, has a little necklace trinket that is only of given or is in possession of the kings of man. So he is the rightful heir, and that is your first nod to it, is that he has that because Aragorn has that.
Aragorn does have that. So Aragorn is a descendant of Isildur / Elendil. So Elendil is the guy with the long hair.
Yeah.
So Elendil is the father of Isildur. Isildur basically has 3 or 4 kids, and then along comes Aragorn. So he's a relative.
Yeah, it gets
Of
kind of
Numenor.
messy. It gets kind of messy because you have Isildur and then he has a couple of kids. And then there's like 15 relatives that are never explained. And then there's Aragorn.
Right.
But yeah, that's kind of like your first nod to like, okay, this guy is actually more than who he lets on to be. And this is kind of where I'm a little bit upset at this show so far is that the King of the Humans is played exactly the same way where he doesn't want to be the king. He is actively trying to avoid being the king.
So here's my theory about Halbrand.
Okay?
I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right, I'm calling it right now. He might be the Witch King of Angmar.
That's entirely possible. That could be the stranger too. Again, that's one of those. Well, no,
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't be the stranger.
because
He
the witch.
is no. He was originally a king, and I forget how he gets to Angmar and whatnot, but like he was originally a king of men.
Sure,
And
but so were the ring wraiths. So is he? I don't remember. Is he actually technically a ring wraith? The witch queen king. Blah, words. Yeah, was he?
Witch King of Angmar? Yeah, no, he's the leader. He's the
Okay,
leader of
so
the-
he actually
he's
does
one-
get a ring.
Yeah,
Then, so if he gets a ring, then I guess that will be
that's why he's
more
a
or less
Numenor.
confirmed, right? But
He's in Numenor. So like it could be that theory could go 2 ways. One way was I think he's the Witch King, and basically he's gonna get a ring and be deceived by Sauron, blah blah blah.
yeah,
Or Halbrand is actually Sauron, because Sauron could wield shit. He's a blacksmith and he's a handsome dude. Halbrand is, and that's what we kind of get. Like when he approaches Sauron to convince Celebrimbor to build the forges.
yeah,
Shit, as a handsome dude, the Lord of Gifts or whatever.
yeah.
That's the
That's a
impression I don't know.
possibility.
I don't know. There's so many freaking theories right now, and I'm kind of liking where the show's going.
Yeah.
And
Because so far it is relatively. I mean, within reason, it is following the book pretty closely.
yeah.
With the couple of changes, the daughter being thrown in and a handful of other things, but I could see that. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who the fuck Sauron is. That's basically all right. I don't really care about the character development all that much. I'm just trying to figure out, all right, this character, he's got some side plot going on. This character's got another side plot going on. Who's more trying to win over somebody, but then eventually fuck them over?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I believe he is called Anatar, the Lord of Gifts.
Yeah, Antar.
Anatar. Yeah. But yeah, that should be interesting to see if that plays out. I feel like it has to at some point because that's how it happens. Whether or not we actually get that in like a flashback or not,
I don't know. Maybe.
I don't know,
But Celebrimbor, he makes all the rings. He makes 19 of the 20 rings. He gives, obviously, 9 of them to men, 7 to dwarves, and then 3 to the elves.
Yes. And then from there, that's where Sauron decides to make the one to rule them all, and inscribes it with the black speech, and which gives it power over all of the others. So, as a side effect to that is, if the one ring is ever destroyed, then all of the other rings are rendered useless. Which is why, while the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship, up until the last film, all of those rings that the elves possess actually still work, which is why their lands are relatively untouched.
Well, then I'm pretty sure Celebrimbor made the rings separate for the 3 elves.
Correct. He actually does make the dwarven and the human rings first,
right?
And then makes the elvish rings as like a side point. Be like, oh hey, we should have some too.
Yeah. I mean,
which is kind of weird.
So, Jake, to give you a little thing, this forge. So Elrond actually helps make the forge that Celebrimbor is trying to make. Yes. But he needs it done in a short period of time. Right now,
so
it's
what
like
does he do?
It's like late summer, early fall, almost.
We need it built over winter.
Over winter and done by spring. So like only a few months. So essentially, Elrond is sent to the dwarves,
yes,
and basically
to the Misty Mountains,
trying to recruit
Misty Mountains.
them because they're good with mining and shit and building.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, they are convinced to come and build this forge tower.
Oh, that tower is just going to be built in Mordor. You know it. Like, it's the same design. It's just minusing the little spikes at the top that eventually house the eye.
See, in the series, though, they don't really show much of it. Like, they show its construction, but...
You see the blueprint, and it's the same shape.
No, they show it actually being built later on, but, like, they don't show...
Oh, did I miss that part in episode 4?
You definitely missed that part, buddy.
Okay.
They show it being built, they're looking out a window or something, they see, like, some construction going on. There is a little bit of a tower, but I'm not entirely convinced that's, like, Mordor or anything.
Yeah. That could be Sauron's tower. That'd be fun.
No, there's no way. No, that's not where that would be.
Okay. Well, I think that we have covered quite a bit just in the
over 4 episodes.
Just in the 4 episodes, hell. So I imagine that we will do a part 2 for this when the season ends. So I do believe we've at least covered enough for this particular episode. So, Colin, do you have any closing thoughts?
I want to know 1 or 2 questions from Jake, because I'm sure he is just confused as hell. So, do you have a question or 2 about what the hell we just talked about?
No, not right now. Like I said, I apologize to everyone. I haven't watched it yet just because I'm a cheap bastard. So I'm waiting for House of Dragon to wrap up, and once that, I can cancel HBO Max. I'll be able to subscribe to Amazon to watch this show. a lot of names were thrown out, so I'm kind of sitting back and just listening more. So I can just reference everything to the actual Lord of the Rings series or The Hobbit. But it sounds really cool. Sounds amazing. I'm happy that it's off to a good start. So I'm looking forward to watching it. But
Yes, definitely give it a watch. I highly recommend it to everyone in the room to continue to watch it and our listeners. But my overall thoughts over the show, I'm not disappointed. I'm definitely intrigued. I want to see where this goes, especially with all these minor and major characters, and see how their development flourishes. But I got a few things that could happen next week that I can see, but we won't get into that until part 2. Anyway, what about you, Kenny?
Well, I think that they have been given enough room to develop the story the way they want, with there being 5 seasons, so they're not trying to cram too much into the one, although they already kind of have, which is great for the nerds like me that have read most of the books. And it's just like, hey, I remember that happening. It's nice to see some of the fan service, I suppose. Getting more backstory into the elves, you kind of get to see how their society works a bit more.
I still don't trust them.
Most people don't. That's like, going back to Tolkien being the creator of fantasy racism. Besides that point, I am going to continue watching. I have no gripes so far. I like how each episode is roughly an hour long. Just enough time for you to sit down every week to watch it and feel satisfied.
I like that as well. So I'm excited about that. I think that's the one thing Disney Plus does wrong is their episodes are way too short. So I'm happy to hear Amazon went for a little bit longer.
Oh,
episodes like HBO.
They
It
are
makes sense,
literally like 60 plus minutes an
Yeah, I
episode.
love that.
Right.
I absolutely love that. So
Yeah.
And the premiere of the show was 2 episodes, each one being 60 plus. So basically, it was an entire movie just for the season premiere.
Right. And
Series premiere, sorry.
right. With the budget they have, it might as well be blockbuster movie quality anyways.
Jeff Bezos, man.
Yeah, that Amazon money. Unlimited.
He
So,
actually
The
had
dude's just fucking bored.
and the guy who plays
Gil Galladad.
Gil Galladad, that is Jeff Bezos' son.
I never really had kids.
Yeah, so that's his son, and he actually just a quick side note. He actually spoke with Jeff Bezos because he is a Tolkien fan, like huge Tolkien fan. Not Jeff Bezos, but his son. He's like, hey, if you're gonna do this right. Don't fuck this up.
But you will be disowned from the
do
family.
not fuck this up, because he is a huge Tolkien fan, as am I. So, yeah. Other than that, guys, just so we're clear, we do have an Instagram. So hopefully you'll give us a listen and a follow. Subscribe our YouTube.
Yeah.
We are
Links
Derby
down
City
below.
Fandom. The link will be attached to this YouTube channel, and please follow us on Instagram, and we can do some more things like that. So yeah.
So I'm going to give you all a slight teaser for next week. We're going to be heading back to Star Wars.
I can't wait. That starts tomorrow, right? Well, tomorrow for us.
Andor does start tomorrow,
Yeah.
September 21st. That'll be our
Yes,
next
sir.
I'm
episode.
looking forward
Not
to it.
next episode, but our next episode will be about Andor.
I'm looking forward to that.
Correct. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. See you.